So, hello and welcome to all. Thank you for being here, whether you have been an invited speaker or not. So, this is part, as you know, of the Knowledge Summit, the third Knowledge Summit, Indo-French Summit, and there are seven parallel workshops, including this one, and several of them are dedicated to AI and in particular AI and its applications. So we're one of them, and we have a sort of a multiple set of objectives. We want maybe first and foremost to have interesting discussions among the panelists and between the panelists and the audience, science being the driving force. We also want to think in terms of Indo-French collaboration. This is, after all, the framework for this whole Knowledge Summit. And so hopefully, since most of us don't know each other, this meeting will lead to new projects, Indo-French projects. And the last objective is to formulate, after the end of the workshop, formulate so-called recommendations to the powers that be, to the French and Indian funding agencies, in order to hope to have an impact on the framing of their next call for projects, for Indo-French projects. So there is something called CEFIPRA, IFCPAR, which I'm sure many of you already know, which is actually the official organizer of this workshop and the other workshops on AI. And CEFIPRA has yearly calls for projects that can include money for exchanges of visits, money for PhD students, and those projects can be between academic teams, and they can also include industrial partners. So that's really a variety of possibilities which we hope to avail of. And so that's who hopefully our recommendations will be read by, CEFIPRA and the funding agencies behind it. So that much is said. The format that we agreed on together with Utpal Garain from ISI Kolkata, who is a convener with me of this meeting, is that we have short talks, as you've seen from the program. We have like 2 talks, then time for questions from the audience, from whoever, to the speakers, and then more talks, more questions about those talks, and at the end of the day, we have a little bit of time for a more general discussion about the perspectives that are raised, that will have been raised during the day. A little time today and a significantly greater amount of time tomorrow. And that time is to talk about science, talk about what we think are the bottlenecks or the promises based on what's been discussed in the presentations, and also the beginning of the framing of the recommendations that will be the deliverable, so to speak, of this workshop. So I hope that this is okay with all of you. It looks like we're in a pure Zoom platform environment. So I think most of us are familiar with the functioning of this. Maybe at the time of questions, it would be best to raise your hand, and then Utpal or I will call you to ask your question. Then you'll reactivate your microphone and so on. So please keep your mic off when you're not speaking to avoid, parasite noises from our respective environments, and reactivate them when you are ready to ask a question. And just to remind you, in order to ask a question, to raise your hand rather, at the bottom of your screen, you have something called reactions, at least it's called that in French, and what it's called in English. And there, among the choices, there's raise your hand. And we and everybody else would see who raised their hands and in which order. Are there any questions or more information about how we're going to be working? Okay, Utpal, did you want to add something?
Not much. Thank you, Pascal. So once more, I welcome all of you. Good morning and bonjour for our French colleagues, and good afternoon for our Indian colleagues and researchers. So thank you so much for joining this workshop, and already through emails. So what we wanted to say express this slightly a different format of this workshop rather than other academic workshops we normally attend, where only talk intensives and expert talks are for more duration. It's rather here you see that talks are duration of talks are little less than the usual one, because idea, and thanks to Pascal, because last year he organized a similar workshop, and that had a huge impact of this following this format. That okay, so each expert will speak about his or her research for 10, 12, 15 minutes. Then there will be more discussion, because so idea is to have handshaking between Indian researchers and French researchers. So from that perspective, we appreciate Pascal's idea that organizing workshop in this way. So our goal is to find out the handshaking between researchers, industry partners who are doing agricultural research, and a lot of machine learning and AI. So data-driven approaches, I don't think anything new in agriculture, but probably the reason we are talking about these things for last few years is that recent advances in AI and machine learning. So idea is to explore these new techniques, new methods, which are basically showing magical performance in other agriculture, other engineering fields. So whether some of the techniques can be used for agricultural research also to have new state of the arts and say quantum jump in the performance. So our goal is to explore all these things, and final goal is to have sustainable agriculture. So so we'll be here, myself and Pascal, throughout the workshops, and so question answerings, and the idea, as I told you, and thanks to Pascal, to have more and more discussion. So probably finally we'll be very successful in pursuing this thing. Thank you so much. Thank you, Pascal.
Great. And as Utpal mentioned, there are among the participants academics, and there are others who come from the private sectors, startup companies, some even that have one foot in the academic world and another in startup companies. And so that will, and among the academic participants, some are from more computer science sort of departments, but others come from more from institutes that are more specialized on agriculture or biology or forestry, and so that's really an interesting diversity of points of view that will be represented here. Hopefully that will be fruitful. Right. So, right. Okay, I'm sorry. I was checking the WhatsApp channel that goes in parallel, but nothing that I need to do at this point. Excellent. So, are we ready to start then, Alka? So I will. First, I must apologize for being how to say, faithful to my cultural traditions as a French person. So I tend to forget to use all the honorary titles, professor, and, doctor, and so on. And so that is not meant as disrespect in any way. It's just that I get confused in all those different titles, and I'm not sure I see the point. So excuse the relative informality. And so the first speaker is Alka Arora from the Indian Agricultural Statistics Research Institute in New Delhi, who will be talking about applications of AI techniques in image analysis in the agricultural domain. So, Alka, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pascal. Thank you so much for the introduction. And namaskar to everyone who all are present in this gathering. So I take this opportunity. I'm thankful to the organizer for this opportunity to present the work we are doing in the area of AI, especially related to the agriculture domain. And like as the Pascal and Utpal said, I look forward to the collaborations with the Indian as well as the French counterparts in this particular agriculture domain in the area of applications of AI in this particular domain. So before I present the case studies, I would like to introduce my organization a little bit so that everybody should know from where we belong to. So just to give you a brief about organization ISRI, it's a premier institution of Indian Council of Agriculture Research. And we carry out research in the area of statistics, bioinformatics, and computer applications. So you can see it's amalgamation of all the data sciences disciplines in one institution you can find out. Along with this, our institution is partner organization to the Indian Agricultural Research Institutions, IRI, which is the deemed university of the international repute in the area of agriculture and conducts MSc and PhD programs into various disciplines. And we being partnered to IRI, we conduct MSc and PhD courses in 3 disciplines in which we are working. Then ISRI has got different divisions as per their specialization. And our division where I am posted, Division of Computer Application, it is very much instrumental in the area of computer application in designing, development, and implementation of the e-governance applications, mobile application, MIS, as well as into the infrastructure creation and management for the entire NARS setup. That includes our National Agriculture Research and Extension System. We have our own data center with the name ICR Data Center. We have a specialized data center for bioinformatics computing with the name Ashoka, and we have our DR also disaster recovery with the name Krishi Meg. So with this huge infrastructure in place, we serve to the various services of NARS. And we do carry out research in the area of artificial intelligence, semantic web, data mining, with the major emphasis in the agriculture domain. So this is all about my organization. So this is how I devised my talk. I'll be taking the case studies of artificial intelligence in agriculture domain because we know the application can be enormous. So I'm going to present 3 case studies, in which 2 case studies are out of my MSc and PhD students. They have worked. These are in the area of plant phenomics. And one more case study in which we are working in a World Bank funded project right now. This is AI applications with image data in the area of disease and pest identification in crops. So just to give you a brief about the plant phenomics, as everybody know that plant phenomics is a very important area of study, using the phenotypic traits of the plant like senescence, like number of spikes, we can say leaf area, leaf weight, we can calculate the plant area, or we can find out we can study the various parameters of the plant growth and analysis. this, which in turn is related with the yield estimation or various other parameters. So we have attempted our AI applications in this particular area, in the area of plant phenomics. We have a dedicated high throughput imaging platform, which has been established by LabnaTech. So this center has been established at IRI with the name Nanaji Deshmukh Plant Phenomics Center. We acknowledge the data we have received for our research from this particular center. We are working in close collaboration with them. So coming to my first case study, which I am going to present, this is, we have worked in the area of plant phenomics for identification as well as counting of spikes for the wheat plant. Okay, so this approach is divided into two parts. In the first part, basically deals with the spike identifications. So in this, we have used convolutional encoder-decoder deep networking technology, or the data mining technique. I'm not going to go in too much details of the technology part, because I understand majority of the people are well versed with this now. So these techniques has been deep and convolutional encoder-decoder technique has been identified for spike identifications. So this is the area of AI which we have worked in. And then in the second part, we have gone for the counting of spikes so that we can find out the grain part and then ultimately the yield estimation. But we have worked, and this network which we have created, we have given this a name spike segment. We have published 2 papers out of it with this algorithm, one in the plant method and another one in the IEEE Access. So in this convolutional layer, convolutional encoder-decoder technique has been applied. We have taken the input RGB images of the size 256 by 256. On this, we have applied 16 filters of the size 3 by 3. Then we have extracted 16 features out of it. Because for this, we have done the max pooling layer has been applied, and then this max pooling layer of 2 by 2 filters has been applied, reducing the image size to this. And then again, we have applied 64 filters of the size 3 by 3 convolutional filters has been applied. So this way, again, the max pooling layer has been applied. So based on the unit architecture, we have taken 3 blocks of encoder and then 3 blocks of decoder, which has done the first we have gone for the downscaling, and then we have gone for the upscaling of the same for the feature extraction part. And then after, once the decoder part is finished, the output of the decoder is fed into the 3 by 3 convolutional layer with the ReLU activation function. And the output we get is the masked image in which the spikes has been highlighted into that particular image. So based on this unit architecture, 3 into 3 encoder and 3 decoder blocks has been attempted for this. For this experiment, we have taken 600 images of the 200 plants, because it is a closed chamber in which the pots are there, for which the pictures are taken with the high throughput imaging platform. We have captured the images of a single plant from 3 different directions, because we assume there is an overlapping of the spikes, overlapping of the different leaves. So this, in order to avoid this part, or in order to take care of this part, this imaging has been taken from the 3 different directions. So taking this model into consideration, we have tested the data, where we have developed the model with the 85% of our data. And then this developed model, which we have given the name spike segment, it was tested on the randomly selected 15% of the total plant data. So in this case, we have received, we have got the average accuracy of 94% or more than 94%. We got this accuracy for spike identification. So this was our first part in which the AI was used. In the second part, which is basically dealing with the counting of the spikes. So in this, the output of the encoder-decoder network, which is basically a mask image, giving us the basically spikes. So this is fed into the, we have used another algorithm, which is flood field technique, which is already part of the image software. We have applied this technique on top of it. And then we have gone for counting the number of spikes. For counting the number of spikes also, earlier I mentioned, we have taken the image of the plant from 3 different directions to take care of the overlapping part. So, and then we have considered, like, this is the 3 the images from the 3 different degrees, 3 different angles, which has been taken 0, 1, 20, and this. And then we have applied our spike segment model on top of it. This is the mask image giving the spike classification of the spike identification into picture. And then this flood fill technique has been applied for counting the objects. And then whatever, like for this, we have got 10 is the number of spikes, 10 and then 12. So basically, whatever is the maximum number of spikes which has been obtained, we have taken this into consideration. So then we have checked for the accuracy of the same. And for this, although we have got the accuracy of more than 94% for the spike identification, but using this flood fill techniques, we got, as far as the counting of spike is concerned, we have got the accuracy of almost 92% for the same. And then for the visualization purpose, what we have done is the resultant output mask images were superimposed onto the test images, just to give you a clear-cut idea, like whether this has been obtained correctly or not. So this was the first case study. In the second case study, which is again part of our my MSc student thesis work, Mohit has done that. So this is senescentica, a desktop application which has been developed for the plant weed senescence quantification. So in this again, we have taken senescence. As you know, this is a very important concept. Senescence is not only senescence, basically the changing colors of the leaves, basically. So whenever it can be due to the aging effect also of the leaf, or it can be whenever the stress is applied, or whenever in the drought conditions, the leaf basically changes color. It can be when the drought is coming early, so this color will change early. And this is basically considering these plant parameters. We are trying to evaluate the plant growth, basically. So again, we have considered this RGB images. We have taken pixels into consideration, and the pixel values are basically classified. Pixel values are classified based on the machine learning algorithm into the different senescence classes. And based on all this concept, this senescentica application has been developed. So for this, again, we have collected the data from the Nanaji Deshmukh Plant Phenomics Center, IRI. We have considered 540 images. We have considered basically 30 weed plants in this case, which is grown in the controlled environment. There are different stages for which the plant goes. So there are basically 18 stages, starting from the initial 1, 2, it goes to the 18 stages, which we call it as a maturity stage. So for every plant, 18 images has been collected. So for 30 plants, data has been collected. For this, we have applied 6 machine learning algorithms, which has been trained for the classifications. How we have done this is, we have taken 5 classes for senescence and the greenness, like brown, yellow, pale yellow. These are the classes for the senescence, and dark green and the light green, this is for the greenness. And then there are the background classes also. So total, we have taken 7 classes. 5 are for the senescence and greenness, 2 for the background. What we have done is, we have collected sample pixel values for this particular class. So almost 1000 pixel values has been sampled for each and every class, taking it this to this number. And then we have applied these 6 machine learning algorithms on top of it to see the classification, how it is being, whether the pixel has been properly classified into the given classes or not. And we have got almost 96% accuracy with the ANN. So for further part, we have used ANN as part of our approach. So what exactly in the senescence quantification, what we have done is, we are reading the image pixel one by one, applying this ANN machine learning algorithm on top of it, and then predicting whether this particular pixel is belonging to which of the class, whether it is belonging to the senescence class or the green class or the background class. So based on this, whenever if a particular pixel is classified into the green class, so the value for this is increased. This way we are calculating basically percentage for each percentage of pixels in each class, and then we are calculating the total plant pixels, based on which we are calculating the total plant area. So this way, these are the different parameters which has been established, like how much percentage of senescence how much senescence percentage has come, or how much senescence has been obtained. For this, this is the type of output which has been generated in the software, which can be downloaded by the researchers. So our Nanaji Deshmukh Plant Phenomics Center, they are using this particular software for evaluating the senescence parameters. Otherwise, they were doing it manually, which is a very tedious task. After that, this was just for the classification purpose.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sort of time's up.
Oh, so I have to be speed up. I have to take up my other case studies also.
I don't know. I mean, it was 12 minutes and it's been 15 minutes already. So I mean, I don't want to, you know, if you can sort of.
Yeah, I'll be faster. I'll be going to the third case study, which is just I wanted to share that case study, which is very important.
Okay.
This is just the visualization effect. So this again we have done for the maize data set for 3 different diseases, basically in 3 important diseases of maize. We have done this particular study. For this, this is the, I'll not go in detail of this. The thing is, like I told, we have got a very good World Bank funded project also for this. In this, we have collected a database for which we have developed a mobile application, which we have given the name AI DIS. So it is an artificial intelligence based disease identification system for crops. This is a mobile app is applicable for collecting the data, validation, annotation of the images, as well as at the same time, we have developed the AI models also, which has been applied at the background, and the results are basically obtained for this particular disease identification as well as the pest identification for different crops. The app has been tested for the maize data set, but at the same time, we have collected the data from our partner organization, which are state agriculture universities and the AICRP centers. So we have collected data for almost 14 crops for the 35 diseases. And similarly, we have collected information for 18 crops for more than 50 pests also. So this is how we are working with the different applications of AI in the area of agriculture domain. So there are amazing like future scope for collaboration in these particular areas. So these are some of the papers I mentioned. It has been published. Some are already in the, we have communicated, and this will be published soon. So various international and national journals, we have got this publication. So thank you, and sorry for exceeding my time limit.
Thank you very much. It's a very nice concluding slide for AI.
Yeah, it's AI, so much to do in AI and a lot of things to collaborate, basically. The technology is too vast, basically.
So as I said, we'll keep the questions for after the next presentation. So we'll move on to Pierre Benet's presentation. And Pierre, so Alka, if you can stop sharing your screen.
Yeah.
Thank you. Pierre is a researcher at CIRAD, at International Center. It's a research center on agronomy, and he's based in Montpellier in the south of France.
Thank you very much. So can you confirm me that you can see my slide and my screen now?
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So I would like first thank the organizer to allow us to present some results of our research and development activities in the context of the Knowledge Summit. So I'm botanist working since more than 10 years in biodiversity informatics domain in the French Agricultural Research Center for International Development. So it's a pleasure to present you today with the contribution of my colleagues Alexis Joly, computer scientist at the French National Research Institute in Informatics and Automatics, the advance made in the recent year in our team in the use of deep learning for sustainable agriculture, and in particular with the analysis of some case studies aiming at automated characterization of plant species and agricultural field. So societal demand and biodiversity loss require a drastic reduction in the use of phytosanitary products in the agriculture. And so this reduction is possible with the development of new solutions for crop protection and agricultural field management. So based on the experience in the development of the PlantNet citizen science platform we are managing, we are therefore investigating the experimentation of deep learning-based solution for automated crop species and variety identification, autonomous weed control solution, and plant pathogen classification that I will present in the next part of that talk. So in the context of the International CLEF conference, which is a cross-language evaluation forum, who is a sister of the FIRE forum, which is conducted in India too. So we are organizing since 2011 an international campaign to evaluate techniques for identifying plant species based on image analysis. So this challenge is entitled Plant CLEF. And despite the increasing complexity of the tasks that we propose to the participants each year, with a growing number of species and an increasingly complex visual pattern, which are mentioned in the table on the top of this slide. So we have measured increasing performance for the top competitors each year, which is illustrated in the graph below on this slide. Since 2015, the arrival of deep learning has allowed us to see the huge performance gain in this challenge, which encourages us to use this type of methodology for more complex classification tasks, such as plant variety identification, seeds identification, characterization. As regards the problem of identifying plant species observed in the outdoor environment and not in the laboratory, so we have been developing the citizen science platform PlantNet since more than 10 years now. So that platform aims to facilitate the identification of species by simply analyzing images of leaves, flower, and fruit directly from the field. So free and open access. It has a number of daily users that almost double every year since its launch in 2013. And it is now daily used by several hundreds of thousands of people around the world. It covers nearly 36,000 plant species, and we count about 20 million end users of the mobile app in the last 12 months in almost every country in the world. About 12% of users use it for their professional activities. PlantNet is largely used in agricultural context and land management activities, in addition to many educational contexts too. Even if the platform is not fully translated in the various Indian languages, it has been used in India by nearly 370,000 people during the year 2021, which is quite encouraging for the potential increase of its capacity to correctly identify plant species of the Indian flora. Based on a close collaboration with the European Union Joint Research Center, the GRC, based in Ispra in Italy, a dedicated PlantNet micro project has been implemented on the platform. So this one allowed to quickly identify all European crop species recorded in the European LUCAS survey, which is a survey dedicated to record the land use and land cover at European scale. And so all data collected will be then used to better understand European crop phenological dynamics, as well as the change in crop rotation at the European continental level. Based on the encouraging results obtained in the context of Plant CLEF and PlantNet, we therefore sought to address the problem of plant image categorization at the variety level in order to work at a finer taxonomical grain than the state-of-the-art studies, which usually work at the species level. So this work focused on the identification of very difficult plant varieties to differentiate, since it involved rice variety from automated seeds analysis. So based on the production of a data set of more than 2,000 images of rice seeds, illustrating 95 distinct varieties of rice from all over the world, we experiment the use of Google Net convolutional network. And so the performance that we measured were of 88% of correct identification in the top first predicted varieties and 99% of correct identification in the top 5. So this allowed us to see the very high quality of this type of model in well-designed data acquisition context, which is quite important to obtain such high results. So this encourages us to continue in this direction, working at a finer visual scale by trying to estimate the proportion of different seeds in seed lots intended for animal feed. And so this type of work is indeed very important to allow a quicker estimation of the nutritional value of seed lots, which determine the volume to be purchased by a livestock farmer. So the result obtained so far with mass CNN, in that case, for the realization of an instant segmentation of batch of seeds comprising up to 5 different seeds species illustrated here in that image, for example, are quite encouraging and allow us to envisage making this type of services accessible via smartphone within 1 or 2 years. With the adaptation of PlantNet platform to agricultural context, as we saw before, we wanted to experiment the identification of crop widths to improve automated intra-row weeding. Indeed, several alternative solutions already exist for inter-row weed control, but only few of them are able to efficiently work for intra-row, which is illustrated here in blue on this slide. So in the context of the Weed-Elect consortium, we work on a solar-powered agricultural weeding robot equipped with an electric weeding head, illustrated on the bottom right of this slide, and a high-performance weed detection and identification system. So this project led us to work on 2 main crops, Zea maïs and Phaseolus vulgaris, and 4 weed species, 2 with spread out shape and 2 others with elongated shape, mentioned and illustrated here. Also, we found significant difference in the performance of autonomous species detection and identification with the use of mass CNN. We observed that these differences were largely related to the size of plants to be detected. The smallest one, below 3 cm wide, being the most difficult to characterize correctly, as it's illustrated on a graph on the right side of this slide. The results obtained on the identification of plant species lead us to try the identification of plant pathogen. So we then relied this work on the use of the Plant Village dataset, which is one of the most famous one on plant pathology typologies. We then investigated to what extent a convolutional neural network could recognize a pathogen on a crop for which it had no training data for the targeted crop. So this successful work has been published last year in Frontiers in Plant Science and has allowed us to demonstrate the potential of knowledge transfer from one crop to another, contributing to tackle the lack of training data for all crop species. As this is one of the main challenges to scale this type of approach, so the accessibility to accurate and rich training data set, we think that this type of approach has an important and promising potential to increase the capacity of application of this type of methodology in the context of plant pathology identification. And the final issue that I would like to mention is the need to better understand how this type of classification models works. This is why we have been working in the interpretability of these visual classification techniques, in particular with the production of attention maps, allowing to visualize the important part of the image used by the CNN to make their prediction. And so an illustration of these attention maps is presented here on the right of this slide and allow to see in white the part of the images used for the automated classification of these images in particular. We believe that this work is essential for the acceptability of this type of solution and more generally for a broader use of deep learning at a larger scale in agricultural activities. Many thanks for your attention. So I would like to conclude and thank all the various partners and financial institutions involved in this research activity, which I mentioned here, and I will be pleased to respond to any question at this stage or during the knowledge summit. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Pierre. That was great. So now we have time for questions. So if you want to ask a question, please raise your hand. Or just, yes, Edmond.
Yes, thank you very much for these two presentations. Very nice, and I am not exactly in my. It is not in my competency, but I learned a lot by listening these two speakers. I have two questions. The first one is how to implement such a research project directly to the small farmers in India. This is the first question. And the second one is usually the identification is not 100%. So we are about, let's say, between 80 to 90% of identified criteria. But what could happen if someone needs 100% of identification to take a decision? Thank you.
So I can start to respond if you agree, Pascal, or I can let Alka Aora to respond first and then complete my question, as you want.
Alka, do you want to react?
Yeah, it's a very logical question which has been asked by Edmund, because in Indian scenario, it's really difficult to apply the techniques, AI techniques, especially to the small farmers. So this is a real problem even we faced whenever we are also dealing with this question time and again with this part. But what I'll say is this type of AI technologies, sometimes it is region specific. So if for a particular region, some type of predictions is being given, so which is applicable for the entire region. So this way it can be helpful, but not specific to the small scale Indian farmers, I'd say. Yeah.
If I may interject, and Pierre, you can.
Yeah.
But is it reasonable to think that the small farmers, as you say, have access to a mobile phone that has data capability? Is that a reasonable assumption or not? Because I noted that in your presentation, several of your points led to the development of mobile apps, which may be for data collection.
Yeah, because this is this is because in India, like if I talk of IoT kind of scenario, which is very difficult to basically implement for the small scale farmers, but the mobile penetration is very high among the Indian farmers. So that's why a lot of mobile applications is being developed for this particular purpose. So the mobile savvy farmers basically, or we can say the tech savvy farmers who are intelligent, they can even guide their fellow farmers also. For this, particularly for this identification for the disease and pest identification part, which is very important. But as far as if IoT is concerned, devices, so it is a slightly tricky, I'll say, for the Indian farmer in this particular scenario as of now. But yes, in future, things will scale up, which I guess.
Chair?
Yes, I confirm the fact that I think the use of mobile app is a quicker way allow an access to such research results and to have a feedback of their end users. So in the context of PlantNet, we were surprised by the diversity of the interest and the diversity of uses. And so this feedback can drive orientation of future research activities. And it can also allow us to respond, and Monrock, to your question about how to deal with accuracy of the identification and how to make a good compromise between the expectation of the end users and the capacity who have the research team who design this type of solution. And so a part of the solution is to well present to the end users the confidence score that we have in the prediction that is done. So by the use of this information, it allows the user to have a much more capacity to see what type of action he can really implement according to the confidence score of the prediction model. So this is one way. I think a second aspect of the solution is also to show directly what is the parts in the images that were used by the model to do the prediction. So I illustrate that with the attention map. And so this can also give some more information about what was used by the model to make the prediction. Is a part which is not relevant for the end users is highlighted. For example, it can potentially illustrate a missing prediction. So these are the type of solution that can help the end users to make a more accurate and well-informed choice, I would like to say.
Great. We have time for...
Thank you very much.
So if there's no other short question, Utpal.
Yeah. So my question is for Pia. Pia, you talked about instance segmentation. So very quickly, may I know that what kind of technique you used for instance segmentation? Because multiple instance segmentation is definitely a challenging problem in machine learning. So can you remember that what kind of technique you used?
So for that instance segmentation, so that we illustrated on the use of seeds, automated seeds identification in seed slots. So we use techniques that are based on UNet with glance identification. So we produce our training data from Cocoa annotator tools that can be used in many different instance and object detection classification. And so we use these ground truths that are produced at the level of mask in order to allow the training of mask RCNN and also UNet in order to compare this different deep learning architecture and to evaluate their benefits in the context in which we want to deploy. But we must say that we always have this difficulty to find the best compromise between the training data that are necessary to have accurate prediction at a large scale in terms of diversity of in our context species or visual classes, and the fact that it is not always possible to produce the appropriate volume of training data to apply these techniques. So even if we know the performance can be correct, we don't have the training data in all of that context. This is always the balance. So this is why we compare these two different techniques.
And one more thing, for pathogen control, you mentioned that you used a multitask learning framework. So what are the tasks there? Because I see that only one task is that pathogen identification, right? So what are the other tasks you added there to make it multitask learning?
Yeah. So in that experiment for plant disease identification, we train a model to identify the plant species and the plant pathogen differently.
Okay.
And so the idea was to take advantage about the common visual pattern that are expressed when you have this in the end two concepts that are visible in the images. So this is the context in which we use this multitask learning strategy.
Yeah, thank you. And this is a common question. I think many participants here, and Pascal will come back to this issue later on. That Dr. Aurora and Pia both. And is it possible to make your data sets open so that I mean, probably we can take some initiative to make a common data set pool so that many other researchers can work? Is it possible that to share the data set, whatever you have generated?
I'm sorry, because time, we're supposed to keep a tight ship here, but this is a super important question that was apparent in, so it's something to think about for when we get back to the discussion, a general discussion on conclusions, because that is something that could be a topic to explore together. How to collect data, you mentioned citizen science, you mentioned apps that are used for collecting data as well as for usage of the ML or AI techniques. There are regulatory, not so much maybe in agriculture, but more so in health, but there are regulatory constraints in the different countries. So these are very important questions. And along that, much less difficult, I think. But you mentioned, Pierre, that your platform, PlantNet, is available in very many languages, but not so much in Indian languages, in spite of several hundreds of thousands of users, I think. And so the question that we don't want to answer right now, but is what would it take to expand that? That's probably not really an ML or AI question, but it is important also. Okay, so thank you again very much for this lively session of questions. And we're going to switch to Abhishek Mukherjee, who is at the ISI and Indian Statistical Institute, and he's going to tell us more about machine learning for image-based identification. Different shapes.
Okay, so am I audible clearly?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thanks. Thanks very much, Pascal, and thanks, Utpalda, for giving me this opportunity. My name is Abhishek. I'm an agriculturist, and I work on plant nematode interactions. So a word of caution for everybody, I'm basically in agriculture. And this is the project that we initiated a few months back. So this is still a work in progress, but I want to present a case that can be very important for an agriculturist and for people like us who comes from the agriculture and the translational part of it, rather than the development part of it, of the AI. So here I'm going to talk about the machine learning of image-based species level identification of root knot nematodes. So if you don't know about nematodes, so these are basically a very, very diverse metazoans, having more than 1 million species, and they present at almost all conceivable habitats in this world. Nematode bodies, as you can see here, are slender generally, but there are size variations that's present. Beyond agriculture, nematodes are used in various other aspects. For example, in ecology, nematodes are used as models for indicating ecological health. They are used as a model in biotechnological, pharmacological, and other toxicological applications as well. However, our interest is primarily one group of nematodes called the root knot nematodes. The root knot nematodes is a major problem. It's a global problem. As the name suggests, this basically creates root galls in the plant roots, and then that depletes the nutrient in the plant, and thus causing a tremendous amount of crop loss. So globally, there is an estimation that there is a loss of about $100 billion annually for these nematodes. In India, we have 14 such species of root knot nematodes of importance. Of these Incognita, Javanica, Graminicola, and few others like Intra-Row Weeding are very important. Our target is basically these 4 species. Incognita and Javanica, Melodoga Incognita and Melodoga Javanica are two root knot nematode species which attack the vegetable crops, and they infect them heavily. Merodogain graminicola is a pest of rice and other graminaceous crops, whereas this Intra-Row has recently been isolated from guava. And it's been creating problem in the southern part of the country as well as in West Bengal and also in northern part of India as well. The major challenge for identifying the nematodes, or rather root knot nematodes, is that they're very small, they're microscopic. And you need really trained eyes to find this species variation. So traditionally, these nematodes, or the root knot nematodes, are identified through morphology of adult females, particularly a region called the perennial pattern. So if you see this is a female Merodogain, and the section there, which is basically the section of the vulva or the anus, and this is what it creates. It's basically a fingerprint of the nematode, by which the taxonomists basically identify the different species. Of course, there are molecular tools, but that is not available to all of the everybody, particularly the labs that are dealing with the farmers. In general, it also takes time, and you need to have those instruments available to you as well. So this is still the most predominant way of identifying root knot nematode species. But as you can see, you really need to know what to look for identifying these species. And there are always variations between experts. It's very difficult to batch process when you have multiple samples. So I'm giving you, 3 examples of perennial patterns. So this is a perennial pattern of incognita. This is a javanica, and this is Intra-Row. So for an uninitiated or untrained eye, this looks very similar, right? So for example, if you look at this, this region, this is called the dorsal arch. This is like a little bit squarish, whereas here we can see a little line. This is called the lateral lines. So these are important taxonomic features that nematode taxonomists will use for discrimination of the species. But as I said, it poses considerable challenge. So this is the step that we follow, and this is the approach overview. I would like to draw your attention here. So when there are multiple experts identifying these nematodes, there is always variation between experts. So intra-expert variability is there. Plus, when you have multiple plates or slides to look into the microscope and identify the species, it creates a challenge. So it takes a lot of time, and then there is there are different sort of problems in identifying this. And as you know, and as you probably would appreciate, that current identification is the key for deployment of specific management strategies. And these are really important pests for agricultural crops. So we thought about how come we can automate the identification of this process, and that could eliminate the human error, or rather also quicken the process. The challenge, though, is that there is considerable variation in the interspecific within this, the perennial patterns of this nematode. And I would like to highlight here that, so far, there has been very limited applications, albeit there are applications. So for example, here, I have cited one of those applications where they've used AI techniques for counting nematode eggs. But many of these applications are limited to C. elegans, which is a model nematode used for many biotechnological work. So what we propose here is that at this point, we are maintaining cultures of these 4 nematodes, Graminicola, Incognita, Intra-Row, and Javanica in our lab. Each of these nematodes, we first identified for confirmation of the species, we used molecular scar markers for confirmation of the species identity. So we are dissecting or developing slides for the perennial patterns of these nematodes, and then we will capture in images. Finally, we would hand over to Professor Gorain in the KaiML for development of the ML architecture. And to my understanding, they would basically apply 3 different parts, which is traditional ML techniques, which would involve random forest and other neural networks. Then they will also use deep learning methods, and also finally they are going to use unsupervised machine learning methods. So this is the proposed workflow that we are taking. This is more of a nematological techniques from my side. So we collect roots, we stain roots, and we isolate the matured females. We then cut this, anterior part, the posterior part, and then we develop the perennial patterns. We prepare permanent slides. We acquire the images, and then we hand over the images to our the AI collaborators for developing the AI component. So why this is important, and why we think that this could be very beneficial to nematologists as such? This is because this is a novel architecture. This enables fast and accurate identification of archaean species, and this is a bottleneck currently in the nematological research. In future, if we are successful in developing this framework, in future this can be extended for identifying other nematodes. Not only that, for enumeration of other nematodes as well. So why this is important? Because nematodes are often used as ecological indicators. So when certain nematodes genera are present in a particular habitat, their presence or absence will denote whether that habitat is ecologically sound or there are some disturbances. So if we can automate that process, it can be part of many biological processes, or rather workflows. So this project, when we are successful, will have following concrete deliverables. We have annotated databases of 400 images of this archaean species. And finally, the AI system will have the segmentation, feature extraction, identification of the species, deep architecture for identification task, and finally, the cluster-based analysis of rare species, if that is available as well. But then the domain knowledge also have to be implied on that to identify the rare species. This is what we have at this point of time. I'll be happy to have any questions. And for the AI part, of course, I think Professor Gorain would help us in answering those questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So as in the previous sequence, we're going to have another presentation and then questions for both presentations. So the next speaker is Jérémy Frazil from the Dilepix company in Rennes in Brittany, in France. Jérémy.
Hello, can you hear me?
Very well.
Okay, can you see my presentation?
As well, yes.
Okay, so nice to meet you, everybody. So compared to the other intervenant, we are a private company. We are a software company based in France, in Brittany, exactly. We are a spin-off from the INRIA. So the previous presentation from Pierre Bonnet with the CIRAD, they use the PlantNet as is coming also from the INRIA, so the French National Institute for Mathematics and Robotics. And we apply technologies that is called this platform. It's a visual surveying platform. The idea is to control robotics through the vision. And we have exclusive licenses to apply this technology to the agricultural market. So we are a company that is doing the industrialization of all this computer vision and artificial intelligence for the agriculture. As you can see, we are working on different market on the agriculture today. We are working on the machinery. I will show you some example, and also on the livestock monitoring. So from the pig to the insect farming industry. And today I wanted to show you some example on the insect farming industry, where we are developing some neural network and artificial intelligence based on computer vision to help the insect farmer to control and to monitor their production. So just a small sum up of the insect farming industry today. We really are in rising protein demand globally over the world. This is a green industry because, as you know, we are feeding the insect with what we call co-product from the food industry. And these insects are bred on a very small surfaces, and they produce in a very fast way a lot of proteins. And this is a huge market that will grow very, very fast in the next years. And at Dilepix, we provide tools to control the productivity and the quality. And so some examples today, we are using two different tools, neural network that we design on our own. We are really developing the neural network from scratch with different approaches, you will see. And when we need to track in time and to localize in space, we use the visual surveying platform from the INRIA on which we have different exclusive licenses. So on the what we call the cycle of the insect, we propose different solutions to count the larvae, to estimate the mortality, but also to look at different ratio, the stages of the insect, the size of the insect, and we are able also to control robotics depending on the result of this analysis. I wanted to show you two use case examples. So the first one is used for a quality audit to count the larvae and to estimate the mortality. So the idea is for the producer, they cannot relate on the weight of the larvae because you have the larvae, you have what they call the blend. It's the food of the larva, and they are mixed with the food. And they are also what they call the poo of the larva. It's called the frass. And everything is mixed in the crate, so you cannot use the weight because it won't be enough accurate. And so they need to count the larvae, and they need to know what is the mortality in the batches. And so we develop a solution based on video. So these larvae are under 1 millimeter, and we use a neural network based on the density. So to count, it's not detecting every larva. It uses what we call a density map, and we train this neural network on the density map to be able to count the larva even when they are clustered. So when you have a lot of larvae on one over another, it forms what we call a cluster, and to count them we use a density map, and we are estimating the mortality based on the movement, and we use this platform to calculate and to estimate the movement and so the mortality. And so the result of this kind of neural network is the number of living larvae and the number of dead larvae. We are today at a 95% accuracy, and so it helps all the insect farmers around the world to pilot their production, because it's in a way to be industrialized, and you need to be able to pilot with a good accuracy the volume of larvae they will produce. So this is the first example. The second example is to estimate the size distribution of the larvae. So the idea it's based on samples. You take a picture of a sample like the one you've got on the picture, and the neural network is giving you, so it's counting the larvae, but it's also estimating the amount of larvae in the different size ranges you have defined. And so it's helped to control the production homogeneity. The idea is in the insect farming industry that the larvae are growing well when they are in the same classes of sizes. If you have a very mixed sample like this one, it won't be optimal in the production. You need to get the same size of larva at the same step of the production. Second aspect, second market, it's totally different, but we also have some projects ongoing on the vision-based autonomy. So the idea is to help the manufacturers of agricultural machinery to build autonomous action for the machine. And so the idea is to use the vision compared to other techniques, because there are other techniques to make a machine autonomous. Is that we are improving the existing optical guidance system, because we are able to make our software accurate even in different light condition, different humidity condition. So we develop what we call the enhancement of the data set by generating thousands and thousands of images from a first data set, by changing the background, adding humidity, adding fog. And we are able to make our neural network more robust and to use only a small sample of data. And it's good because it's also able to manage unforeseen events. Most of the robots today, they are programmed, and if there is an unforeseen event during the work of the robot, it will just stop and it won't try to avoid, for instance, an obstacle. And also, we don't have to reprogram a robot if you need to change it from one farm to another, because it will adapt itself to its environment. And there is so the first aspect is the autonomy of the machines, but also the collaboration of the machine. It's a good thing because we will be able to collect data from this camera. They will be used for the autonomous function, but it can be used also to collect data. For instance, today we are working on an autonomous machine in the farm that is able to collect data on the livestock. When it's distributing the food, it's also collecting data from the cows, and this data is used then by the farmers or by the vet to improve the production. So the last example is something we are working on since 2018. The idea is to identify the different weeds. So this is an example with a drone film. We are able also to identify the different weeds, and we also collect the RTK coordinate of each weed, and to build a very accurate map of the localization of the weeds. The idea is to study the dynamics of the flora in time, so to be able to know why this weed is appearing at this time of the year, but also to intervene on toxic weeds. So here you can see it's on a crop of peas, and the European black nightshade is the weed that is focused and targeted here, because it's a toxic weed in the peas and we have to avoid them, and so to intervene very early in the crop stage. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. So excellent. So we can have questions to both Abhishek and Jeremy from the audience. You can raise your hand. Edmond?
You hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much again for the speakers. So very nice presentations. Just one question to, it's not a question, it's a remark from a sentence said by Jeremy. It's about the rising the protein demand. I think that okay, as a nutritionist, because it's my field of work here in Clermont-Ferrand in France, I think that this demand should be better analyzed, because the protein out of the matrix which is coming from should be looked after the nutritional aspect also. Just to give you an example, if you take the protein from the red meat, the protein is important because the red meat protein is much more available, let's say, and the disponibility of this protein is high for the human body. But this matrix also contains iron. So it means that the protein is not the only point for this particular protein, but this is the same for the other proteins and the other sources of proteins. This is one point. So it means that, okay, insects could be an important or an interesting solution, particularly for the countries where the land is lacking, such as Singapore, for instance, just to take a real example. But in the countries where there are some already some lands, I think that we can also try to apply, let's say, two approaches: the agroecology and also how to reuse the lands because they were a little bit deteriorated by using the chemicals and so on. So I think that this demand of protein could be also analyzed in another view as instead of using insects. The second point is again, when you take all this research, let's say today on artificial intelligence, I think that again, how to implement for the smallholders, farmers, because otherwise we perhaps put some people out of this this improvement of science and the use of science to improve the agricultural area. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, yes, you're right. Just to answer the remark, Edmund, yeah, you're right. And you know, today the insect farmers, they are only producing for the livestock food, and a particular part of the livestock food. So it won't be the answer for all the protein demand. You're right. And we really focus on the topics on applying topics that are at the research stage to the industrial stage. So we are working also on application for some topics, more on the livestock topics. But our objective, our main and our goal is to apply this technology and to make it available for the farmers.
Abhishek, any comments on this, especially on the question of accessibility of the results?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the point is, this is the very, very important consideration when we develop a technology. So the aspects that I was talking about, and I think this is applicable to my talk as well, because there are different labs across the world who use different sort of microscopes. Some of the microscopes are really high end, and some of the microscopes are, not that great. So the image quality will vary, when you use those different sets of microscopes. So we need to see when we develop those applications is how, the quality of the input image, has the sensitivity on the results. So because if we really rely on really high resolution, high quality images, that may not be accessible to many of these labs, especially those, maybe my lab cannot generate even that kind of images. So I think it would be relevant and it would be important that when we consider or develop these techniques, we need to think about the applicants in general rather than a specific client. So yeah, I really appreciate these comments and this viewpoint.
Utpal?
Yes, so I have one query for this from Jeremy, that say when you are designing the system, so you talk about once a system that you are using drone image to identify wheat or different flora classification. So what is the architectural or hardware complexity, so that I mean, just to get some idea that I mean, this hardware overhead to realize this kind of system?
So it's a very good question. It's a huge project. There are 5 different partners on this project, and INRIA is part of the project. And the objective of this project is to provide a proof of concept for the manufacturer of agricultural machinery. So we were looking at the beginning of this project of 2 different kind of vectors to make the film on the field. The first was the drone, and the second one was the tractor. And so we decided to apply this project for a tractor. And so today it will be directly embedded on the tractor. So it means that the total system with the hardware, the camera, the processor, what we call the GPU, it's complex. It's complex because you have also the RTK with the coordinates. But the thing is that the neural network itself could be applied in a very simple device like a smartphone. It's just that you won't have what we call the RTK with the centimeter accuracy of the coordinate, but you will be able to identify the different widths. So, but yeah, it's more a topic of the database, the annotated data, than the technology, because you saw in many different presentations that there are different neural network and applications that can identify the width. But today, the real objective of this project is to be able to make an accurate location of each width that it will be used for the knowledge, because one of the partners is INILET. It's a French association of the the vegetables producer in France. And so they want to understand why toxic weeds are coming in different fields in different time of the year. And the second aspect is to use this concept to make action on this weed. It could be spraying, it could be manual weeding, but the total concept is made to be embedded on a tractor. So it's a huge hardware.
But this processing is done offline, right? No online part is there.
Yeah, also we wanted to make the most complex use case first, but it could be, the analysis could be done after. But the data, for instance, the data is huge because it's high resolution pictures with the coordinate linked to the picture with the millisecond precision accuracy. So even if you are doing the analysis after, you need to record the data and you need huge capacity.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you so much.
Well, I have a follow-up question. There's another place where you use a video stream you explained in the larva counting mortality estimates, actually. And so I was wondering whether it's a video stream or it's a video that you analyze ex post. Can you do it real time? I mean, that's a sort of a technical.
Yeah, we come from the robotic control, so we are doing real-time analysis.
Okay.
It could be what we call real-time. It could be real-time embedded, and then it's a real-time because you can take robotic action depending on the video stream. But we are also analyzing video stream when they are recorded. So for instance, on the livestock monitoring, we are connecting to surveillance camera, recording the video, analyzing them. But when you need real-time action, like robotic action, it's a real-time. It's under 10 milliseconds.
And another maybe robotic related question, when you map the weeds in peas, green pea plants, plantation fields, when you map the weeds very precisely, as you said, this used to be considered extremely costly. So would be adding a very significant cost to the whole system, which you said is embedded in a tractor. So maybe that becomes invisible for the farmer because the tractor is even more expensive. But is that, do you have like sort of cost-effective solutions for centimetric or even below that mapping?
Yeah, and this is why we finally choose to make this concept available for tractor manufacturers, because they are the only one that could take this concept, integrate them to actual tractor machinery with a cost-effective in a cost-effective way. If you want to deploy the hardware on itself, like a standalone concept, I would say, it will be too expensive.
I see. Yeah, that's an important consideration, of course. Yeah. Other questions or comments on these issues? We have a little bit of time. This particular question session was a little longer, so we can also all take a breather and a drink of water or something. Of course, the speakers can ask each other questions as well.
In that case, Pascal, we can have a 5-minute break, right? To start before starting the next session.
Okay, very good. But Pierre now raised his hand.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Just a short question. I would like to know if among the participants, some people know the FIRE forum, which is a forum dedicated to computer scientists to evaluate. So it's a forum that conducts annual benchmark on different tasks. dedicate to compare different methods of automated classification. So it's a sister forum of Clef that I mentioned in my talk, and FIRE is specially designed for Indian context and Indian subject, and so it will be useful for me to know if people who know them, for example, just raise their hand in order to have an idea about how famous is this forum, which is quite important in my field, and so which I think could be an appropriate place, for example, to join the forces of some of the participants to the forum. So I saw one, Jeremy, Frazil. So it seems that FIRE is not so well known.
Right. In India, we are not aware of this, right? True.
Okay. I will change in the chat the link to the description of that platform, and then it can allow to see if it can be of interest for some participant. Thank you.
That will be great. That will be great if you kindly share that link.
What does FIRE stand for?
Sorry?
What FIRE, is that an acronym?
Yes, it's an acronym. So I'm just put the link. It's for the evaluation forum for computational techniques.
All right, so we can take, if there's no additional question, we can take a 5-minute break or 4-minute break and resume at 4 o'clock. At 4 o'clock Indian time, which would be what, 11:30 French time.
So I myself come from a math background, and I'm a faculty at Chennai Mathematical Institute. And at Chennai Mathematical Institute, there's a consulting wing called Algolab. So how I got interested into this problem is that, for the past few years, I've been looking at computer vision, which is a very fascinating field. And in 2017, a drone company approached CMI with 2 problems in their operations. So one problem was related to path planning, and the other problem was related to analyzing images to analyzing the images that their drones were taking. So at that time, they were working with a seed company, and the seed company was experimenting in various fields in Andhra Pradesh, and they wanted crop counts and yield estimation for those corn fields. So that is how we came across this problem. And so what I'm about to present is the work that I did in the past 2 years, learning along the way. And so maybe I'll just begin. So precision agriculture is this larger field in which corn yield estimations lie. So this is the field in which the newer technology is applied to manage and get better and better yield. It has been known for a long time that satellite images can be used for this kind of analysis. But nowadays, with the easy availability of drones, even drone images are being used. And I think this is where the advantage lies for the common man to get into this, because drones are something that are becoming more and more easily available. Apart from the handheld mobile devices, drones are also something that could be easily available in the market. They already are, and they can be even more easily available in the coming years. So there is a traditional method of finding out how much crop is there by manually counting, but this is not a very effective way of doing it. And so also you never, with the manual method, one never actually counts each and every plant. The counting is extrapolated. So on the other hand, if you use aerial imagery, you can count the actual number of plants in the field at the given time. So that is why that is a good method of counting. So there were these 2 problems that I worked on. One was stand count in 2 different settings, and the other one was tassel count. So the stand count was done first in the first few weeks to monitor the crop emergence, and in the later weeks to monitor crop health. So I'll talk about both these problems one by one. So just to give you an outline, the growth stages of corn, this image shows the growth stages of corn. So these are named as V1, V1, V2, and so on. The numbers corresponding to the number of leaf collars that come up. So V1 is the emergence stage, and if you go ahead, VT, that's the tasseling stage. Tassel is this flower that comes up at on the top. So VT is the tasseling stage, which happens around the 9th, and then the remaining life cycle is called the reproductive cycle of the plant. So stand count analysis is usually done in the earlier weeks because in the later weeks, the overlapping of leaves makes it difficult to count individual plants. It cannot be done in the very early weeks, the first or second weeks also, because then the plants are very tiny for them to be recognized in an aerial image. So so this just outlines the two projects that we undertook. So there was the project in 2018, which was to count the corn over 1,045 fields, which covered around 75,000 acres of land. And later there was this estimation of crop counts in an experimental setting by the seed company. And they were experimenting with over 60 different hybrids for a period of 10 weeks. So they wanted aerial images taken every week, and so that they can monitor what happens to the plants every week. So there were these two counting projects, and the data that was provided from the drone company was some high resolution images of corn fields, and and the camera parameters, the height of the flight, etc. Sorry, just give me a moment. For some reason, the latest version did not. Yeah, sorry about just a moment. Yeah, here, because my best images are in here. Yes. So for the first project, the workflow that we did was simple. We tried to identify a segmentation procedure. So these were RGB images, not multispectral or thermal images, just simple RGB images. So we tried to identify a segmenting procedure, and we tried to design a simple convolutional neural network for detection and counting. So at that point, the images were from the early weeks, so we could actually do this detection and counting. But if the images are from the later weeks, then individual detection doesn't work. So here are some of the results from that first project. So this was the first time I did any kind of detection. So you can see that we did a pretty good job of detecting the plants in the second week of growth here. So these were some of the results. And in the second project, which was more challenging, there were mixed hybrids, 2 rows of each hybrid. And so it was kind of difficult to come up with a single algorithm that would detect plants from the different hybrids. So as when hybrids change, the leaf color changes, the leaf shape changes. There are a number of changes that occur, and it was difficult to keep track of all the changes at the same time. So we had to design a set of different algorithms to detect the corn plants for these different hybrids. So these are some of the images from that second mixed hybrid project. So these, you can see that in these, the leaves have already started to overlap, but we could find segmentation procedures that help us identify the stem centers of the corn plant, and that is how we could do this detection. So these are the numbers, actual numbers. The counting was done for 10 weeks. And since it was an experimental setting over 2 plots, the seed company themselves was doing manual counting. I mean, every week they would manually count. And then the drone count column is the count that we gave by analyzing the images. So as you can see that it's between these weeks 2 and 4 that, I mean, the best sort of numbers come between the weeks 2 and 4. In the first week, in the second week here, the plants were too small, but in the third week and the fourth week, we could actually detect them. So what I'm saying is about this second plot. In the second plot, we had best numbers in the second, third, and fourth week. So that was stand count for mixed hybrids. So since this was the first time I was doing this, I realized that, so I read through a number of research papers, and I realized that there's a huge difference between when you read a research paper, something is written based on what is observed in a lab setting. So there are sometimes lighting conditions are artificial, or sometimes the image is very clear. Whereas in real life images, you can have uncontrolled lighting conditions. There could be cloud shadows depending on a particular day, or there could be a tree nearby whose shadow falls on the crop, or the background can be since the view is from top down, you can have not very good separation from the soil. So that is a problem in segmentation. And also, a number of research papers that I read talked about the corn especially being placed evenly in rows, separated by this much distance, and rows separated by this much distance, and so on. And that is how the results work. But these images that we got, the later images, the planting was done very tightly. Okay, so the plants were very close to each other. They were also unevenly spaced, so some of those methods didn't work here. Okay, so then we had this challenge of different hybrids in the second project. Also, the restricted viewing angles, because in many lab settings, there will be a side viewing angle, and you can actually see the entire plant. But that is not true if you're looking at a drone image. So there were these ground realities versus lab setting challenges that we realized. And in building the technology itself, in building these codes, the lack of data sets that contains images from the field, that was one of the largest or the biggest problem that we faced, especially in the first one, where the CNN that we built, we cannot really guarantee the effectivity of it everywhere, because of the very limited training data set that we had. There are no real large data sets of corn stands with images taken from the aerial images or drone images that can serve as training data sets for this kind of neural network. Then data cleaning and preparing the data set for training was a huge task, because we had to manually do the annotations for a while. And as everybody is aware here, I think that this is one of the biggest tasks in creating a data set for any kind of training. So I mean, this is one of the areas that we would like to see some collaboration, or take part in some collaboration to create these kind of data sets. So the second problem that I worked on was tassel count. So tassels start appearing on the corn plant from week 9. This is how they look like from the top view. So a tasseling of a plant is an important period in its life, and the plant is very sensitive to changes during that period. And so good management practices have to be taken during that period. And detasseling is also a process that's done. It's in a very time sense. There's just a period of 2 weeks over which this process of detasseling needs to be done. I can say what this is later if somebody asks. So in Tassel Count, the current state of the art is this data set called the maize tassel detection data set, which was created over the years 2010 to 2015 by a set of Chinese researchers. It's an annotated data set of 361 images from the field. These are high resolution images taken about 300 dpi images. These taken from a height of about 5 meters from the ground. So this is a very good data set, and the detection model called Tassel Star is the current state of the art. But these are very computationally intensive. The Tassel Star is very computationally intensive. So recently, I have been working with joint with Dr. Prerna Mukherjee from JNU Delhi, and we are trying to. So we also received some tassel images from this drone company, and so we created our own data set consisting of 136 images, which are not so high resolution as the MTDC data set, but also they are taken from a height of 15 meters, not 5 meters. But we did find that that adding this low resolution data set to the MTDC data set improved the results somewhat. So our focus right now is on building a lightweight model for embedded devices. Raspberry Pi devices is what we are working on right now, which can further be used on handheld devices. So the aim is to build a model that can be finally used on a handheld device for detection and counting of tassels. So the results that we've got are comparable. The MAE and MSC numbers are comparable with those of TasselNet. So, so here are some of the detection results.
I'm sorry, Kavita.
Yeah, I'm done.
Concluding.
Yeah. So just these images. Yeah, thank you. And if there are any details that anyone would like to know, I will be glad to share in the. Thank you all for listening in patience.
Thank you very much. So we'll keep the questions for after the next talk as we've done before. So thank you, Kavita. And then we're going to switch over to Ayan Das, who is from the Indian Space Research Organization, but talking of crop discrimination and crop yield. And in this talk, maybe moving away in part from the image analysis. You're up.
Hello everyone. Thank you for giving. I must thank organizers first for giving me this opportunity to present in this knowledge summit. So I am basically an agriculturist, and I am working in crop and soil modeling using machine learning through use of different kinds of remote sensing data. So these are the outlines of my presentation. So I will first touch upon the scope of remote sensing data towards dealing with the problems of real agriculture for sustainable agricultural development. And I will also show some of the applications of AI or ML for agricultural and allied sectors that we are working upon at our center. And I will also show some of the scope for joint collaboration. So in our center, the dedicated team are working upon various facets of agricultural problems, starting from production forecasting and food security, including inventory of crops as well as crop yield, and also crop insurance, agro-made products and services, agro industries like dairy, food processing, and also precision and smart agriculture, and agroclimate and process-based studies. The studies are having a variety of scales, starting from farm level to village level or block level or district to state as well as national scale. And these are catering to various societal benefit areas, starting from import-export policies, claims settlements, then maximizing input use efficiency, then climate policies like this. Among these themes, we are basically we are using the AI and ML for basically this production forecasting and crop inventory, as well as for precision and smart agriculture. though there are some possibilities and some scope is there for application of this AI or ML towards agromet products and services, where you can predict from the previous data what is the drought incidence can be there in the next few weeks or not. So there are some possibility for that too. So considering the diversity of participants, so I'll spare half a minute on the basics of remote sensing for vegetation-based studies. So among the satellites, we have sun synchronous satellites that are polar orbiting and that are installed at a height of around 700 to 800 kilometers from the Earth's surface. And there are some geosynchronous satellites that are placed in around 36,000 kilometers. Those provide data in very small amount of time, in around 30-minute interval or 1 hour interval. So from these geostationary data, we get some data related to atmosphere, and from the unsynchronous data, we get data about crop and soil. And all this consists of the crop variables, soil variables, and atmospheric variables. And these are the part of essential agricultural variables that are defined in GeoGlam, that are defined by GeoGlam and are very much required for taking decisions by the managers. So among these, we have imaging capacity in optical domain and microwave domain. So in optical domain, the sun's radiation, when it falls to the crop surface, some part is emitted, some part is reflected, and some part is transmitted. So we see the reflected radiation from the plant canopy, and the reflected radiation is sensitive to the vegetation greenness as well as some biochemical components of the vegetation. So in among these, we have broadband channels as in multispectral data in blue, green, red, NIR, short infrared region. Or also we may have some thousands of bands with very narrow contiguous channels as in case of hyperspectral data. This can give us a unique signature of each and every plant or any kind of biochemical constituent of that. And in contrast to that, microwave data has the capacity of seeing through clouds, because whenever in the rainy season or kharif season, we do not get data that is obscured by presence of clouds. So in that case, we have microwave or synthetic aperture radar data in various bands, starting from C or L or C band. So those are sensitive to the vegetation structure and the water content of the vegetation as well as the surface dielectrics. So we use all kinds of data together for addressing various kinds of problems. So we are working on machine learning or AI-based applications through various various purposes. So I am presenting the generalized workflow. So obviously we need to first select the sensitive variables considering our purpose of our problem we are dealing with. Then we need to do training and test data splitting. And we have the experience of suite of different state-of-the-art machine learning models, starting from neural networks, support vector machine, bagging earth, random forest, gradient boosting machine, deep learning, etc. and etc. And we use these models for basically two kinds of tasks. One is classification and another is regression. And we do the task in two ways. Either we compare individual model performance and use a single model prediction, or we use several model best performing model stacking, which is also known as super learning. And we use the repeated cross-validation output for performance checking, and finally, based upon that, we do the spatial prediction. So I will now show some of our case studies. So this is showing this slide shows the use of C-band power data from Sentinel-1, that is in microwave domain for classification of kharif crops, that is resistant crops. And here in microwave data, we have polarimetric data. So the data comes in variety of polarization combination like HH, VV, VH, and HV. So these four combinations are there. But the data, some are quad pole like Radar-2, and some are dual pole, that is Sentinel-1. Sentinel-1 is an open source data, but Radar-2 is not. Besides, there is a temporal revisit capacity of the sensor. Since after how many times it is again seeing the data. So in this work, we have tried to address that whatever is important, whether a temporal perspective or the polarimetric perspective is important. And here we have used 4 machine learning models, that is deep learning, random forest, gradient boosting machine, and we have stacked them through elastic net. So the key and the right side picture shows the classified map of groundnut over a part of Junagadh district in Gujarat. The key message from this work is that whenever we have more number of dates, then dual pole data, means VV and VH, band are sufficient for getting higher accuracy. But when we are having less number of dates, then polarimetry based on quad pole data gives best result. So considering the upcoming RI submission of this row, when we will be having quad pole data of around 24 to 25 days interval, then it will be very beneficial for generating crop maps for Kharif season. This slide shows very important effect of ground truth data quality on crop classification. So our machine learning model accuracy always depends upon the quality of the data we are collecting from the field. So whenever our target crop is, suppose in this case our target crop is corn, but there are some competing crops there also in the field. So we need to take into consideration the other crops too, along with the corn crop. So from the plots, we can see that whenever there is a high number, despite the presence of high numbers of corn training polygons, whenever there is an imbalance between the target as well as non-target crop, the accuracy is not too high. For achieving a higher accuracy, we need to have a higher number of target crop as well as a proper balance between target and non-target crop. And we have also optimized a minimum number of ground truth polygons for having a good accuracy at district level. So now talking to a better crop discrimination using hyperspectral data, we have also done some of the research work. So we in hyperspectral data, as you can see, we have data in numerous narrow contiguous bands. So these are very much useful for very complex type of crop type mapping when very complex types of association between crops are there. So we have used simple spectral angle mapper algorithm and used in case of multispectral as well as hyperspectral data, as you can see in the top left side curve. We have get good accuracy with single data of hyperspectral data. And we have also tried to use some genetic algorithm for classifying between mango and sapota. These are two very similar fruit crops. And we have also used deep learning neural network for crop environment detection over a region that is known as Anand in Gujarat. So these are some of the improved capacity of remote sensing whenever we are dealing with much complicated problems. And with global ventures of open source hyperspectral data like from DESIS or Nmap and also from future missions like Kisui or SBG, this provides a great opportunity for application of hyperspectral remote sensing data for dealing with agriculture-related problems. Now I will touch upon the use of AI or ML for crop yield modeling. Here I am taking sugarcane as a target crop. So here we have worked in collaboration with a sugar mill authority in two states of Gujarat and Maharashtra. Here I am showing a case study for Gujarat only. So we have worked with them. We are very much thankful to them for providing us necessary data and helping us in every aspect of our research. So they have a mill command area and they have very well-defined crop field boundaries available with them. And the curve shows the optical data availability till April to May only, and beyond that, the C-band SAR data availability is there. So in sugarcane, the major economic part is the cane, as contrast to grains in case of rice or wheat. And the grain and the cane that is full of water, that is sensitive to the VH or VV backscatter of SAR data, and it is also sensitive to the sweet band. And there is another index known as NDVI that is sensitive to the greenness of the vegetation. So whenever the crop grows after spectral emergence, as you can see in the graph, the NDVI that is correlated to the greenness of the crop increases, and with maturity it decreases. So the temporal pattern is there. You can fetch the temporal pattern from there. In this study, we have combinedly used the 10 meter Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2 data from optical and micro domain for sugarcane yield modeling at yield level. So whenever you use single multiple linear model, we have achieved the R-square of 0.75. But using a model stacking of different machine learning based model, we could achieve R-square of 0.90, and we can show the we can predict the crop yield at least 2 months ahead, at 2 months before the harvesting starts. So it will enable the mill authority to decide whether they are in surplus of their milling crushable capacity, or they need to borrow it from another mill. So these are very much beneficial for decision making at the mill level. Now I'll touch some of the work, though it is much in R&D research domain. So though we are also working in soil modeling first. So here we have worked on prediction of soil salinity from hyperspectral airborne data. So as you can see that these are the graphs shows the spectral signature of different types of saline soil, starting from non-saline to very slightly saline, moderately saline, saline, strongly saline, and very strongly saline soil. Most of the research still now has worked on very high, very strongly saline soil. But in this research, we have worked on the soil salinity problems in the agricultural field. Those are often beyond the detection capacity of the sensor because of the multispectral broadband signatures. But due to the very good capacity of the hyperspectral sensor, because of high signal to noise ratio, we are able to get the variations of soil salinity in the field using the hyperspectral remote sensing data. So now I'll come to my conclusion. So very deeper scientific experiments and investigations are needed for making precision farming a reality for India through infusion of various imaging and non-imaging technology for increasing the use efficiency of different inputs and with least damage to the environment to make the next green revolution realizable. So we have expertise in some areas which I have shown earlier. So these are some of the proposed research areas like within season crop masking, crop type masking, crop type area indicator, then within season crop yield forecasting or inter-season yield estimation. And also we are in the R&D mode for within season soil chemical modeling too. So key capacity building, scientific knowledge exchange are some of the key requirements for fruitful collaboration between the participants. Thank you all for your presence here.
Thank you, Ian. So now we have time, actually not enormous amount of time, but some time for the questions to our two last speakers, Kavita and Ian. Ian, can you stop sharing?
Yeah.
But that shouldn't stop people asking questions. Thank you, Ian. Well, let me start with a question that sort of links both talks. I mean, Kavita's talk was about drone imaging, and as she pointed out, drone imaging is much less costly and much more easily available, at least I think in theory, than satellites. But so the first question is, are satellite images, or is satellite imaging easily available in the Indian context for farmers or for farming-based companies? And second question, the techniques that you described, Ian, can they also use to analyze images that would be taken from less far up, like from drones or even from airplanes, which I imagine, maybe wrongly, that even flying an airplane above a particular region is less costly than reserving satellite imaging time?
Yeah, there are some openly available data sets that can be used by people. So in optical domain, there are various data like Sentinel-2, Landsat, those are available. And from ISRO, we are also in policy making for making our data available for general use. And also for hyperspectral data, some data, as I had mentioned, they have released from NMAP data and JASIS data, that those are released for public use. And for SAR data, the Sentinel-1 data is only freely to use. For other kinds of data, you need to buy it. Yeah, and these kinds of all the technologies which I am referring to, those can be applicable to any kind of image data for getting the outputs.
Okay. Thank you. Kavita, any comments or?
Yes. So in this data question, so what I would like to add is that, for example, NDVI index, okay, is not applicable to RGB images. So you do require either multispectral or hyperspectral images, which is can be costly to get a drone to get those kind of images. So
Yes.
I do think that still there are using RGB images, how much ever we can stretch that method and try to get work done. Those kind of algorithms will be more useful if one wants to make this technology more adaptable for drone images.
Okay.
So any common person, hopefully in 2-3 years can buy a drone, fly it over their field, and with very low technological know-how, like today how people use mobile. I'm pretty sure that in a couple of years people do already for photography. So people would be able to use drones, and if this kind of algorithms are openly available, like in a Creative Commons license or something like that.
I like to add what Dr. Kavita is saying. Actually, we work on different scales of data. So as we are working with satellite data, and also we are working on airborne data, we are also working towards UAV-based data. So in a couple of years, you are right that someone may come with the data, the algorithm that may work upon the drone-based images too. So we are working together with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Edmund, you raised your hand at some point.
Yeah, just about the comment coming from Kavita Suta. Nice to meet you, Kavita. I am very happy I am very happy to discuss with you because I was born in Chennai also some years ago. The question is the following. So actually, you mentioned that you have some issues when you compare the ground realities and the lab settings. So does it mean that this is a general question for all the participants? Does it mean that in the near future, we are going to modify the agricultural practices in order for them to adapt for the measurements by drones and for the remote sensing, imaging, and so on?
From my side, I don't think I can comment on whether agricultural practices will be adapted because I don't know much about that domain. But I would think it's not easy to do that, especially given that, in India, especially, given that the awareness among farmers about technology is small farmers, small village farmers is not so much. So it would be very hard to have them adapt farming techniques that will, conform to the requirements of some algorithm. It should go the other way around. And I think that the algorithms need to be adapted to real life conditions, moving out from the lab settings and actually taking into consideration what are the real life requirements. So this empathy, this part of empathy, which means where you ask questions about what is actually required for the real life solution of a problem, and then approach research through that. I think that would be a more, I wouldn't say correct, but a more feasible way of approaching.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to add to the questions you're asking. In the case of remote sensing data, the time of sensing to receival of the data and pre-processing, as well as the generation of the information and its delivery to the actual end user needs some time. The delivery time is now a little bit higher. So whenever the farmer is not getting the information in time, so that he can use the information for management within the season. So we are not in that proper condition to providing the information to them. But with the present capability of remote sensors, we are not well ahead of that. But through emerging drone technology, whenever we are working to local scale, so this can be made visualizable to the farmers in a better way. Thank you.
Thank you. Since we're a little short on time, let's switch to the next couple of talks. So the next speaker is Hugo Jamberry from Bordeaux, who will talk about robotics for sustainable agriculture and AI, of course.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Thanks, Pascal, for the opportunity to present some of the work we do here at Université de Bordeaux, mainly. So myself, I work in Labrie, but this is joint work with other partners from IMS, another lab in Bordeaux, Elatech, which is a manufacturer of mechanical system for agriculture, and CTIFL, which is a technical center for agriculture, and Ferme Larère, which is a very large vegetable producer nearby Bordeaux. And I would like not to give a general talk about AI and robotics for sustainable agriculture, but mainly to present two projects which are actually complementary and which are on this topic. So our initial motivation for this project is first the rise of organic farming, at least in Europe for sure. There is a hugely growing consumer demand for organic farming, and this creates new challenges. In particular, the need for mechanical weeding. So it's mechanical action to remove bad weeds, whereas before chemical products were largely used in non-organic farming, in conventional farming. Nowadays, there are less and less products authorized for weeding. And in organic farming, actually, the main is for vegetables. The main technique is to use mechanical weeding. This is a challenge because it requires a large number of workers to actually weed by hand. And this is a seasonal job, not very well paid. So at least in France, it's very hard to find people to do this job. And so there is a need for automatized processes for mechanical weeding. In particular, one challenge is intra-row weeding that was already mentioned in one of the former presentations. So it's a process of removing adventices, bad weeds, from the very row where the plant is growing. So you can see the culture is growing. You can see two images below, which show how adventices can invade the row of cultures, and you have to remove adventices. Another motivation is that we have an experience in Bordeaux in robotics, and we like to go from the lab to the farm and to exit. So from the lab actually to anywhere outside the lab to apply our work to concrete projects with social impact. And we started the project to remove adventices in carrot fields in our partner, Ferme Larère, which is a huge producer of vegetables in France. So we are not yet removing adventices in carrot fields, but we can address other cultures already. So the first step in the project was to develop eTract. This is a robust autonomous electric tractor that you can, I hope the video has acceptable quality on your side. it's streaming live, so I hope the quality is okay. So this tractor is fully electric. It's autonomous. The navigation can be guided either by GPS, high precision GPS, RTK, or a 3D cam in case there is a technique used to, in case the plants are on rows with some relief. And also the navigation can be based on colorimetric analysis to follow a row, which is green, basically. Yeah. So we have, nowadays, we have about 5 centimeters precision, which is okay for our applications. The robot is using ROS, Robotic Operating System, which is some kind of common architecture for robotic application these days, and it's partly open source. So people who want to experiment with the track, they can plug their own ROS components and take control of the tractor and add new sensors and new technologies in it. It's also based on CAN bus. It's a robust communication bus for embedded robotics and transportation systems. But there are a lot of to-dos yet. We are working on a robust control of the tractor, sensor fusion of the various information, and also teleoperation. We are very naive in this field, so we are looking for partnerships for teleoperation of our future. And the second project is, which is actually complementary. It's called Beep Beep. So Beep Beep is embedded on the e-tract, but it's a tool, a smart tool, which is using deep learning for mechanical weeding. So it's recognizing the plants of interest, and more precisely, it's recognizing the stems of the plants, which is somehow the center of the plants. So it works for maize, beans, and leeks nowadays. It's built around the classical architecture. So there is a JSON Xavier PC on which the detection of the stems is performed using darknet, yellow, and several hundreds of samples are enough to learn to recognize the plants. So we have other sensors, LiDAR, IMU to make the detection, and actually it's not enough to detect, then you have to perform an action. The action has to be precise or it destroys the crops. Okay? So we use extra sensors to have a precise action. Also, the detection on a single photo, a single frame is not enough. So we built a model. We aggregate the aggregations to build a model of the world and have an action as precise as possible. So we did that in a challenge where we were evaluated, and at the end of the challenge, we had 88% of the crops still intact, which is from our point of view high, but from the point of view of the farmers very low, because it means more than 10% of the crops were destroyed. So technology is not mature yet. And we had eliminated 70% of the weeds. So yeah, which is not that bad actually. So it's a good, if you think about maybe weeding several times a week, so if every time you remove 70% of the weeds, you are not that bad at the end of the month. And also in this project, there are a lot of to-dos, in particular improving the tools and increase the precision. For the moment, we are not precise enough to perform weeding in carrots. We can only do in maize, beans, and leeks. Yes. That's it. Thanks for your attention, and let's room for the next speaker.
Thanks, Hugo. That was nice. So yes, we'll keep again the questions for after the second talk of this last session. So now the floor is to Mukesh Kumar. also from the Indian Space and Research Organization.
Am I audible and can you see my screen, sir? Can you confirm?
Yes to both questions.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers to present our work here. Here I'll be presenting on machine learning based Kharif crop discrimination and mapping using microwave remote sensing data. So as you are aware that India is an agrarian country where maximum workforce is involved in agriculture and allied activities. Here, Directorate of Economics and Statistics under Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare produced statistics of 54 major crops through different government setup in all the three seasons, that is Kharif, Rabi, and summer Zaid season. In the remote sensing perspective, Mahalanobis National Crop Forecast Center under Ministry of Agriculture is responsible for producing crop acreage and production statistics. So here we at SEC develop methodology algorithms for crop discrimination and mapping and transfer it to MNCFC from where they make it operational at national scale. So during the Kharif season, getting optical data is very difficult. So here comes the role of microwave data, which is immune to cloud. So in microwave system, backscatter is the energy that is directed back toward the radar receiver. So it is mainly governed by sensor parameters and target parameter. In sensor parameter, polarization, incidence angle, and frequency are the main factors that affect the backscattering energy, while geometry, moisture, and orientation are the target properties that affect the backscattering energy. Backscattering may be of surface scattering, volume scattering, that is mainly from vegetation. So this slide shows you the crop temporal backscattering profile of different targets that is present during the Kharif season. So if you see the backscattering profile of urban areas, it is always on the higher side since they have high reflectivity. While the water resources normally absorb all of the incident radiation, so backscatter is very less. For crops, backscattering profile initially it is in the lower side, then it starts increasing, reach to a plateau. Then again, when it goes to harvesting stage, then it decreases. Here I have tried to show you the life cycle of rice crop from pre-transplantation to maturity. In the initial stage, before transplantation, there is a high backscattering values from the land surface. After that, when the rice crop gets transplanted, we know that in rice field there is flooded water, so there is a absorption of radar signal, and there is low backscattering. Again, when the crop keeps on increasing, number of leaves, tillers goes on increasing, they act as individual scatterers, and this increase the radar signal, as we can see in the temporal backscatter profile of rice crop. So what are the challenges, complexity of microwave remote sensing in Kharif crop discrimination? So the major challenges in this Kharif season is the difference in crop geometry, their appearance, their height. So their good growth versus poor growth, and like intercropping, mixed cropping, or fragmented, smaller size of field, widely spaced versus dense crop, differences in variety like hybrid or desi varieties. Here, every crop will have a different response towards the radar signal. So the factors that need to be considered while dealing with these challenges are branching habit, canopy height, structure, roughness, water content, road direction of the field, then phenology, rainfall occurrence during the cropping season or when we are acquiring the data, then the field size, and last one, homogeneity versus heterogeneity, whether the crop growing region is homogeneous, or where the so many crops are grown together in that particular part. So here I have tried to show you the pre-processing flow of one freely available microwave data, that is Sentinel-1. First of all, we read the top split, then apply orbit file, which has header information like incidence angle. Then we calibrate the data to generate sigma naught. After that, we merge the different scenes, then generate the symmetrics. After that, we do multi-looking to increase the radiometric resolution and have square pixel. After that, we do polarimetric speckle filtering to remove the noise, and finally do range Doppler terror correction. And this from polarimetric matrix generation, we generate 4 strokes parameter that lead us to this degree of polarization, which is given as under root of first stroke parameter square plus second stroke parameter square plus third stroke parameter square divided by first stroke parameter. After that, when we calculate this degree of polarization, we have to that equation is like this: 1 minus of degree of polarization. So after that, we calculate this polarimetric radar vegetation index, which is degree of polarization into sigma naught VH. Here now we have all sorts of polarization like copole VV, crosspole VH, and one index like polarimetric radar vegetation index. We try to generate all these data from sowing to harvesting of the crop, considering the biological window of that crop, and we use all this data for our classification purpose. So in the plethora of machine learning algorithms, so many algorithms are available like deep learning, ensemble, neural network, regularization, rule system, decision tree, diversity reduction. Among these, here in my case, we have tried random forest, back propagation, naive bias, CART, KNN, and SOM. So this is one of the results of our study in Aligarh district of UP for baja crop using cross-pole Sentinel-1 VH using different algorithm that I was mentioning. Here we got maximum accuracy in random forest classifier to the tune of 83.8% with kappa of 0.8% and user accuracy of 89%, followed by naive bias with overall accuracy of 82.3% and kappa of 0.7% and user accuracy of 53%. Now, this slide shows you the combination of optical and SAR data for soybean crop acreage estimation over Madhya Pradesh at 30-meter resolution that is given by list 3 of ISRO and Landsat of NASA. This we could get 80% of classification accuracy, since it is a Kharif season, so data availability is not sure. Again, say modest data, it's a coarser resolution of 250 meter. Data is available at regular period, but again, homogeneity versus heterogeneity case come. In homogeneity cases, it works very well, but when heterogeneous crop condition is there, then accuracy suffers. So here SAR data comes into picture, where I have shown here the example of Dhar district of Madhya Pradesh, where you could get 84% of classification accuracy using temporal Sentinel-1 SAR data. This is again an example of rice planting over Bangladesh region, which we have done under ISRO and JAXA joint collaborative project. Here we have used both radar and optical data. From the lower graph, you can see the availability of data sets. Since SAR data is available throughout the season, while optical data is available from later phase of this crop. So what we have done here, we have used LOS2 2018 rice map provided by JAXA. Then we identified rice patches based on the crop section in 5 into 5 kilometer grid. After that, we segmented it as low fraction, then moderate fraction, and high fraction, where more than 50% crop area was there. Then we did a stratified random sampling and got 20,000 pixels for training our algorithm. And for mangrove scenes, for mangrove purpose, we used Google Earth to get the mangrove training pixels, and RI set MRS data for water body mapping. Then we used all this sort of information in the multi-date stacked NDVI image of ISRO AIF's data, and we utilized here random forest classifier and generated the rice map. Here we could get 95% of accuracy in rice mapping. So in this, my conclusion goes like this. Classification based on machine learning approach with time series data at 10 interval provided the best result in 90% of the district which were in under our study. And we could achieve more than 90% accuracy at state level and within 80 to 90% in the majority of the district. Also, the polarimetric star with ML approach had potential for crop discrimination, which is being explored in non-rice crop, kharif crops like soybean, groundnut, bajra. And some of the potential scope of joint collaboration, like joint testing and validation of algorithms in methodology that we are developing for a crop discrimination at different set of cropping conditions, either it is homogeneous, heterogeneous, or different agroclimatic regions. And collaborative approach through different techniques for solving issues that I was showing in the previous slides, like intercropping and mixed cropping. And techniques for in-season crop damage assessment using microwave data and providing pre-harvest crop acreage statistics. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we can now have questions for these two last talks, Hugo's and Mukesh. Don't be shy. Edmond, we can count on you. And Kavita also raised her hand first, actually. Go ahead, Kavita.
Yes, so I have a question for Hugo. So I did, I mean, this video of your the tractor going and weeding was something I saw last year, and I've been intrigued ever since. Because, I can see that the tractor is wide, and you know, it will require a certain cropping pattern for the tractor to be able to go through the field, so that it doesn't trample on the existing plant. So, so then this system will have to be used with proper planning, right? I mean, it cannot go into a field that is already planted and then start. So, also space-wise, for example, in Indian fields, you will not see so much space, you know, between crop rows.
Okay. It's true that so there is no way to change the width of the tractor all the time. So it's true that it cannot go on in any fields without, as you say, possibly damaging the crops. Still, it's quite adaptable because in general, it can always, except in fields where the crops are really, really dense, we always could set up the position of the tool with respect to the tractor in a way that we could process the rows in the fields we went. Well, but I think for the
so
moment,
you're saying it's adjustable?
No, it's not, but you can adjust the lateral position of the tool. And thanks to that, you can somehow find a way to select the lateral position of the tractor and of the tool so that you can process the crops. But okay, for the moment, it's a prototype, you know, so.
Yes, yes. I also have one more question, which is the crops were in the early growth stages. So weeding is also an issue in the later growth stages. So do you have some kind of prototype in mind that will also simplify work in the later growth stages?
I've always been told that weeding is no more an issue when the crops are large, because somehow there is a competition between adventices and crops. And if the crops win the competition, in general, the adventice has no more light and water to keep growing. So really, the war against weeds, at least in the fields of our partners, are at the early stages, and this is really the moment which is crucial for the plant to get the lead somehow on the available resources and to take this is a crucial phase for weeding, the early phase.
If I can comment on this, I mean, you've shown fields of carrots. I assume I'm not very good at this, but I suppose they were carrots, and fields of corn, maize, and bean. Okay, so the proximity of the plants is different in both cases. So isn't it the case that in corn, in maize, the plants are usually closer than what is shown right now on the screen? I mean, is what is shown right now on the screen the realistic?
No, actually for corn, so here what we see are beans. So it's a few centimeters. Ah, yeah, on the left side, those are beans. On the right side, it's maize, it's corn. Yeah. So you see that beans are almost touching each other sometimes. Maize here is maize for human consumption. So it's quite, they are quite close. But when it's maize for animals, I think in general, they are further away one to each other, because when they grow, they need more space. So I would say we are in standard gaps for those two plants that we see here, the beans and the maize. Yeah. And for the carrots, it's much smaller. It's like 1 centimeter or 2 centimeters.
And for the size of the machine, for the size of the rows, as Kavita was asking, well, this particular machine has the widths it has. Okay? Yes. You cannot change how far apart the wheels are. But I assume that one could construct another prototype or another version with the same tools and the same informatics.
Yes.
With the shape of the chassis and to be adapted. It's just a question of how much money you have to experiment, right?
Yeah, you're right. So we are working with that company Elatech, which is producing those tractors, and is very much adaptable to any characteristics which is wanted by the user. You cannot make it, it should be large enough to keep stable, but you can add a few dozens of centimeters, or okay, it's totally.
So there's a question of the vertical, I mean the stability. It is a certain, and therefore should be a certain width at least.
Yes. But yeah, for the moment it's a prototype. If there is an interest for an industrial use, of course it can be adapted to the need of the final customer.
Further comments or questions?
Pretty neat.
Sorry?
This tractor is pretty neat, the way it goes, and weeds in between with just 2 slashes. That's a neat idea.
What is really nice, it's very silent, because it's totally electric. So you cannot hear it on the video, but it's totally silent, and it's a pleasure to work with that kind of machine instead of diesel-based tractor. Also, sometimes, people that grow the plants indoor, at least in France.
A greenhouse.
Greenhouses, thank you. So in a greenhouse, it really makes a difference, because there is no gas, there is no noise. So much more respectful of the human workers around. Also, it has an interest, the autonomous part, it has also an interest for spraying chemicals without human operator nearby. Because you have strong regulation as soon as the human operator is nearby the chemical spray process. There are very strong rules for his health in France. And now I can do it remotely, and it's much better for his health and much simpler to process.
So less chemical and further away from humans.
Yes.
More questions or comments on these two talks? Lukesh and Hugo's. Well, then we can, if there's no more questions, we can switch to a different different mode of discussing, which is not concentrated on these last two talks, but we have like 20 minutes if we want to try to draw some early conclusions as indicated in the program, meaning if some of the members of the audience have a view of what's possibly emerging, what some kind of common questions or important bottlenecks or features that should be put forward to in the conclusions. Edmond, you're raising your hand. Go ahead.
Yes, I would like to start this discussion just by introducing myself. So my name is Edmond Rock, and I am working in France as a scientist, so for the National French Research Organization for Agriculture, Food and Environment. But most importantly, I am also the scientific officer for India in the international affairs of INRA, but also of CIRAD. Pierre Bonnet, I suppose that he belongs also to INRA and CIRAD. So within this task, I am asked to join India in the next month for 2 years in order to reinforce or to improve this INRA India cooperation. I will be based in IIC in Bangalore, so in Karnataka, and actually I am sent there by the direction to also develop a particular project which is called a Living Lab, and the title is the how to improve the food system as well as at the climate sensitive and nutrition sensitive in improving in both of systems. And within this big program, let's say, we obviously intend to develop the artificial intelligence for agriculture. So I think that I take all the names here. So perhaps I will contact each of you to see what can be done between the different academic partners which belong to this network and yourself. Last but not least, I would like also to mention that this program has been proposed in the first Knowledge Summit in Delhi on March 2018 in front of the both ministries of higher education as a roadmap for the 5 or 6 next years. So thank you for your attention, and I think that I will go back to each of you to discuss by email. Thank you.
Thanks. That's actually a reassuring testimony that recommendations made to a knowledge summit can actually have some follow-up and lead to something being realized. So that's encouraging. Should encourage us to make good recommendations this time too.
Yes, so may I start a discussion related to data and tool that say I'm very interested to know this information from Kobita that you say the tool you have developed for counting something. is it shareable? I mean, say you are probably that module is counting, say, this particular crops. But is it possible to share this? Because this is a common tool, I think many agricultural researchers, they need, right? So maybe some of the tools is possible to share.
Yes, I will be very glad to share. It's a simple Python code.
Oh, that's a
And
great
I
thing.
would be very happy to share it. As I said, I have tried to, I don't have much CV background, and I've tried to build it ground up from simple first principles. So it's a very simple code. And yeah, I will be very glad to share it.
Thank you. It's a very, I think, usable for many other researchers. This and say even for the say ISRO team, that you have already developed some of the tools. So is it possible to keep them in the open domain so that to facilitate research activities in this area and some of the data sets? Say, Mukesh, if you have some comment on it, or Ayan.
Yeah, sir. That we have to discuss with our higher authorities. Then only we can comment on this.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. No, but I mean, so can we discuss on forming a forum, say where we can share some data sets? Because situation is that say each group they have some data sets probably, and things are so divided. That's that is probably not facilitating the right research environment, right? So that's why what I'm trying to explore, that is it possible to generate some shareable data source, also some shareable tools, and then we can develop more applications towards sustainable agriculture. So that is the thing
I couldn't agree with you more, and I couldn't push your point more, because this is one of the hurdles that I faced when I started research in this area. Yeah. I was a new, I mean, I am a newcomer, and I didn't know who to ask any question. And yes, you can find information online, but there is just too much information online, and you don't know what to read and what to learn from. So yes, it will be really, really helpful if there is a place where one knows one can approach and ask questions and find answers.
Well, then let me use this remark, this proposition to ask the French participants, and maybe in particular the Pascal Neveu and Pierre Bonnet, about the data sets that they use and whether they're shareable. And if they're not shareable, the data sets or the tools, what are the obstacles? And what I have in mind behind this question is it something that could be brought forward in the framework of this Indo-French thing? And is there even a project that could be focused on organizing the sharing, the putting as a common resource, that sort of thing, that sort of, I mean, tools or data sets. As in, for instance, I imagine that that counting tools have been developed also in other groups, and can they benefit from what Kavita did? Could she benefit from what was done in others, and that sort of thing? So Pierre, you raised your hand. That's good.
Yeah, may I make a comment about the discussion? Yeah, thank you. So in the context of our activity, so we provide an access to the data set that we generate in different places. So for plant occurrence, so we share all of our data and illustration on the GBIF platform, so which is a global biodiversity information facilities. So this is for occurrence of plant species, so it can be of interest in the context of scientists in that workshop, probably for the weed species. And so we share last year around 10 million of occurrence of plants at world level on the GBIF platform. About the visual data set and models that are specific to our activities on image analysis. So we share most of them on Zenodo platform, which is an open science platform supported by the CERN, a French research organization, with the support of the EU, European Union. And we also discuss and think that the share of the model on Model Zoo could be an opportunity to increase their visibility and potential usage. We were contacted a few months ago by some Australian teams that start to establish a platform dedicated to host visual data set specifically dedicated to AI in agriculture. And so this type of initiative is probably initiated also in the US. I did not saw something equivalent in Europe or India yet, but this could be something that could be of interest for the participants. So I don't know if we have to share all our data and model in many different places, or it's better to find and support only a unique one, which will increase the visibility. And about your last comment, Pascal, about the idea to have this kind of a common platform to share model data or their annotation. So I think this is so the lack of data and the lack of ontology to have a uniform way to annotate visual data to increase our capacity to work on different contexts is really one of the main bottlenecks, I think, that we face, most of us. And so any project or increase or investment in the direction that could facilitate common way to annotate and share visual data or annotation could be very fruitful for most of us, I think.
And this echoes one of the lectures yesterday in the inaugural day of the Knowledge Summit, which was about open science. So that's very much in the spirit of the day, especially with the French and Indian government positions on science. Alka, did you raise your hand?
Yes, Pascal. Like I would like within this network, because ours is an academic institution, and yesterday when I was attending this inaugural meet, I could heard some of the fellowship or the fellowships which is imparted to the which will be open in the coming session. So I look forward to this collaboration, or maybe the faculty exchange or the student exchange program information on the same, especially in this particular area, AI in agriculture, because we have a lot of MSc and PhD students who are working in our organization, and it would be very beneficial for them, maybe if they are going for a 3 weeks outside and they are learning how the French counterpart is doing or how the Indian counterpart is doing. So we look forward to that information also.
Very good.
And the academic interest.
Yeah, I think this idea of working around open science platforms, not necessarily a unique one, but large scale, rather than just a network of point-to-point sharing. That may be quite an interesting avenue, and something that can be that can make sense to the institutions that fund us.
Yeah, so my point is that taking off the cue from PR, what he explained. So, I mean, so a lot of practitioners are engaged here. I mean, so say for example, ISRO, and then a company like where Jeremy is there. Then tomorrow, Porak will talk about. Porak is also belongs to a company. So is it possible that say from the practitioners, they identify some need for annotation, right? So we generate data set, and then institution like say Dr. Aurora, they have many students. So can we engage students, and sometimes maybe because annotation sometimes could be a low-hanging fruit, so we can engage say low skilled. I mean, they need not know advanced AI or machine learning, etc., for annotating the data set. But overall, probably we can think about an ecosystem, so that, I mean, practitioners identify the problem, then say institutes and practitioners, we generate data set, and then we engage students, sometimes even other say manpower for annotating the data set, and we can define the research problem, keep it in the open domain, and so this is possible, but we need to more integrated thinking and say initiative towards this end. Probably we can do something meaningful, and with a kind of some meaningful effect in the research.
I agree with Dr. Utpal. It's not only for the annotation work, which is mainly for the, you can say, job-oriented, or it's a skill-oriented task basically. But our students, they are very good in the AI and machine learning part also. So I'll rather recommend we can have some type of internship for the students, maybe 2 months, 3 months internship. Generally, the students carry out with different organizations. So that will give them the platform to get engaged in a real-time projects. And definitely it will increase their skill set also. So internship also is a very good area which we can look to.
Right.
Javita.
Yes, I totally agree with Professor Alka. This is exactly how I got my annotations done. I engaged some students from CMI over the summer, and they were, but they, I mean, some internship had to be available. So CMI had support, monthly support for them, and so that is how I got all these the data set ready for the CMI. So I completely agree that if there is some, they don't require much. There has to be some small stipend that the students can be given as you know, in addition to the fact that they will learn the skill. So if this facility is there, then I'm sure that students will be interested in doing internships, because it also adds to their resume.
Right. Very good. I think, unless there are further comments on this, I think this is a very good start for this workshop. And so maybe we can close it for today and meet again tomorrow. And as you've noted, tomorrow it starts and ends half an hour earlier. So it starts at 2 p.m. Indian time and 9:30 French time, lasting 3 hours a day. Thank you very much, the speakers, for their excellent presentations, and the listeners for their excellent listening. No, the participants for the questions, and so it was very, very pleasant. See you tomorrow.
See you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.